Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Talk with AVC. My name is AVC. We're here in WICR booth here at 11 o'clock. And we're going to get you started with the MLB news as we do on every Tuesday. So Tender Day was yesterday. If you don't know what that is, Tender Day is the last day clubs have the ability for specific players to tender them before arbitration talks break down, basically. You can either give them a new contract, you can untender them, meaning basically let them go into free agency, or you can just stand pat and they'll keep going towards arbitration. And this is also the time where guys who have no arbitration years left, this is where we kind of flush out the free agency class. We figure out the wider scope of who's there, who's not. Now, tender day is always interesting because this is when you see what players clubs really want to keep around. You want to see if people are like trade bait, stuff like that. So, what did I learn from Tender Day? Well, not much, honestly. I expected to learn a little bit more. Really didn't. I did learn an interesting thing with the White Sox is they're definitely committed to winning, but they've given up $6 million for James McCann, who had a great season last year. He was an all-star season. They just invested 4 years in Yasmani Grandal. Jose Abreu is at first, and Eloy Jimenez is going to be taking over the DH roles when he's not playing the outfield. So I don't really see a spot where James McCann will get consistent playing time other than backup catcher, unless they plan on resting Grandal more often, in which case seems odd. And why would you lock up Abreu long term if you planned on moving one of your catchers to first base? It just seems kind of weird to me, and I don't know. It just seems like an odd move. The Marlins actually scooped up, and then we'll move into more free agent news because again, a lot of vets hit free agency. Blake Trinan has been rumored to be possibly going to the Yankees to replace Betances if he leaves. If you don't know who he is, he was on the Oakland Athletics. He did not have a good season this year. Had about a 4.19 ERA, but the season before he was absolutely insane. Had a 0.91 ERA, one of the best closer in baseball last year. Not this past season, the season before. So it's possible he could help out on the back end of a bullpen for some team. And then a couple of other veterans like Kevin Pillar, Mike Franco. Actually, one thing I have learned from Tender Day is that, well, I mean, I kind of already knew this, but I'll change this knowledge with you, is teams really don't want to keep mid-level talent. And what do I mean by that? Well, Kevin Pillar, if anybody's ever watched a guy like Kevin Pillar play, look, he's a decent contact hitter. He has a great glove, and he has a solid arm. He'd easily be a third or fourth outfielder on any good team. But market and arbitration dictates that he would get paid about $9 million, which no team is willing to give anymore. No teams are willing to go so cheap for backup and mid-level talent, even if they find a minor leaguer who can duplicate maybe 70 to 80% of his ability. They'll take that over paying him $9 million. For example, like they'd take a guy like Mike Tauchman over him. Mike Tauchman had a good year last year, so that's not the greatest example, but I think you get what I mean by that, meaning they'd rather take a guy who's kind of just like a low-level prospect with minimal potential, but could be an okay fourth outfielder, than a guy who's been solidified as a veteran like that for these years for the higher price tag. And it really screws over a lot of these guys in their early to mid-30s, and they end up sitting in free agency for a while and taking these really cheap contracts. And basically the only way you get paid again is if you have like an outstanding season and you're taking like small 1-year contracts the rest of your career because nobody else wants you for anything more than that. And this is what free agency in baseball is completely messed up. This is why players, if you don't know why players tender so quickly, some of these young guys sign like 7-year contracts in advance. They're afraid of free agency. They really are. They're afraid that who knows what could happen in the future if they have a couple injuries or if they're slow in production. He get dumped, and no one's going to pick him up for much of anything anymore after that, and it's just a bunch of bounty deals. So that kind of sucks. But on to some more interesting rumors. Actually, we'll start with what's real. Mike Moustakas signed a 4-year, $60 million deal with the Cincinnati Reds. The Reds apparently seem very keen on competing this year, which I find interesting, but I'll get to the NL Central in a minute. Moustakas will be fully moving over to second base. He played plenty of second base with the Brewers, but it was never really his full position. He just kind of played there at times. He was always seen to me at least a better third baseman. But maybe his arm's starting to go. I don't know. Or with the Reds, they just don't want to move Eugenio Suarez away from third. So Moustakas will be playing second for them for the next probably 3 or 4 years. And it's an interesting move because now we get to talk about like a team like the Brewers. They're getting completely revamped, and now they've said that Josh Hader's available in trade talks. This is the plight of the small market team. The Brewers window, they might have missed it. It wasn't as big as some other teams, and it might come up again quickly if they can get a couple of guys. But the Brewers' real window was about 2 years ago when they lost to the Dodgers in the NLCS with a couple of injuries, and this year if they had Christian Yelich. You know, the small market teams, this is how it works. Rebuild, you lose. You get a decent team together. You have your window. It's usually about 2 to 4 to 5 years. You have your window of being good. Then you got to tear it down and rebuild again. Sometimes it happens by force. Sometimes you do it yourself. With the Brewers, it might be about to happen. I'm not saying Yelich is going to be out of town anytime soon. I think they'll give it one more year try at least. But with the starting pitching still weak, Grandal at Chicago, Jesus Aguilar's gone, Travis Shaw's gone, Moustakas now, Scope, a lot of these core bats in the lineup, either these young guys have got to step up like Garcia, or you're going to end up in another rebuild. You got Lorenzo's Kane contract taking a chunk out of you as a small market team. It's going to get ugly before it gets better. Okay, so then moving on to the end here, we got a couple rumors regarding the Yankees or former or possibly again current Yankee players. Bronxville and Philly. So Joe Girardi is now the manager in Philadelphia. And apparently, from what I've heard, it seems that he wants Dellin Betances and Austin Romine. He wants Romine to back up Real Muto, and he wants Betances to be his closer. Now, the Phillies' biggest issue last year was their bullpen, so this is actually a smart move if they could get it. And given what Betances' price tag could be pretty low because of his injury-riddled season, this could end up being a bargain for Philadelphia if they play this right. As far as Romine goes, I don't know if I really see him leaving the Yankees unless the Phillies give him significantly more money, because I think he likes playing in New York. I just don't really see a reason for him to leave. He's got the backup job here probably as long as he wants, unless the Yankees really want to use Higashioka as the everyday backup, which I don't really think I would. Romine shows in spots that he still has it. And the other rumors, I mentioned this in a previous video, that the Rangers were interested in Rendon, and they're looking for a third baseman. They're interested in guys like Donaldson and Rendon. Now it appears that they're seriously and heavily interested in Miguel Andujar. Now the Rangers are going to try to pounce on this now before Andujar obviously is either traded to another team or gets to play again, because they believe this is where his value will be at his lowest, coming off an injured season. And, it'd be a low-risk, high-reward upside for the Rangers if he turned out for them. Joey Gallo's playing full-time in the outfield. And they don't really have that cornerstone in the infield ever since Adrian Beltre left. So getting a guy like Miguel Andujar could do wonders for them. I don't really know what the Rays would give up for him. If they're willing to give up Joey Gallo, I'll take Joey Gallo in a heartbeat, but I seriously doubt that would happen. And I'm not really interested in like a Mike Minor, if that's where they think they're going to go with this, or a Jose Leclerc. That just really doesn't interest me unless they got some top prospect I'm not familiar with. I just don't really know how this trade gets done. but I guess we'll see. All right, that's going to do it here for the MLB part of the talk with AVC this week. We're going to head right into the next segment with college football. I'll see you all in a minute.